Do less to make more with Focus expert David Wood on today's episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Descript. Every book, podcast, and YouTube video that I publish is transcribed by Descript. I've used all of the competitors and nobody comes close to their quality. And the price is the lowest in the business as well. If you want to speed up production and grow your online business, go to servemaster.com/Descript right now.
Are you tired of dealing with your boss? Do you feel underpaid and underappreciated? If you want to make it online, fire your boss and start living your retirement dreams now, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Serve No Master Podcast, where you'll learn how to open new revenue streams and make money while you sleep. Presented live from a tropical island in the South Pacific by best-selling author Jonathan Green. Now, here's your host.
Now, this is a topic near and dear to my heart because we've become really obsessed with efficiency in our culture, whether it's do more with less sleep or biohacking or getting things done, or there's so many different methods of organization that I wonder if we're looking at the symptom, not the problem. And my experience, especially, I'm very interested in focus because I think the number one reason people fail starting their own businesses is because they try to do too many things. We buy too many products or try too many systems. I'm going to learn Facebook ads, and I'm going to learn podcasting, and I'm going to learn YouTube all at the same time. And we can't do it all. So I'd love to start from there and maybe just tell me how you became passionate about focus.
Thank you. How I became passionate. I don't know if there's a way I became passionate. I've realized in the last 10 or so years that I love systems. I love seeing how things are put together. I like puzzle pieces. And when I work things out, and that includes life, that includes productivity, it includes emotional intelligence, it includes leading your staff, it includes talking to your kid. I'm really into that. And I've been noticing myself and my clients over the years how it's so easy to get scattered. The human mind is like a monkey on crack. That's how it is. It's just crazy. It's like while I'm here sitting with you, my mind's like, oh, you should send a message to your manager because I had another thought about something that we were dealing with. That's how it is. And I was listening to a fantasy book last night, Jonathan, and this kid wants to ascend to the copper stage of his evolution. And he's asking his master questions about the gold stage. And the master said, oh, geez, I wish I'd written it down. It was something like, clear your mind and focus on the matter at hand. If you want any hope of ascending to copper, that's where you've got to be right now. And it really stuck with me because I thought that's how it is in business. You got so many people you want to serve, so many problems you want to fix, so many products you want to serve up, so many traffic sources that you want to master, and so many lead magnets you want to provide, and so many services. I'm getting a little stressed just talking to you about all those possibilities. So what's possible once you realize that, like, wow, my mind is so scattered, is to come back to what really matters to me. If I was to prioritize what really matters, and can I meditate on that for 25 minutes? For many people, that's a win. For 25 minutes, if you're able to stick to one task with no interruption from Facebook or voicemail or someone knocking on the door, that's a win. Now, if you can expand that and maybe focus for a day on one or two tasks that really matter, then boy, you're really off to the races. And then what if for a week or for a month, you can have your business focus on 2 or 3 priorities that really matter and get some traction on those things? It's not simple because the mind wants to take you everywhere else. So there's a long answer to a different question. You asked me how I got passionate about it, but when I see what's happening, I'm like, oh, we can change that. And then it's so fulfilling.
I definitely think about how every single product and course and person I know is trying to get to $1 million, right? They want to be a millionaire. That's the line. No one wants to be a 100,000-aire, even though you could have a pretty good life as a 100,000-aire, right? Everyone wants to get to 1 million and then 10 million. It's very different going from 0 to 100,000 in a business, going from 100 to 500, 500. It's very different because it's different parts of scaling business, but you're exactly right that you're focusing on a future problem, right? Like, oh, what do I do when I have 1,000 customers? We don't have any customers yet. We often worry about problems that we don't have yet. And one of the best lessons I ever learned was that focus is our most valuable resource. And that if you try to learn one thing. You give it 100% of your focus. You'll learn it the fastest way possible. If you try to learn turn things, now it's twice as long. So a task that would take 1 month, now it takes 2. And this is where I see people that are trying to learn all these different things at the same time. For me to learn a new traffic method or system for my business takes about a year to learn, master, and implement. It takes me a full year to try and go through a high level course, a high level training and implement. And I see people who buy 4 or 5 in a row. It's impossible because there's hours and hours of training videos and homework and learning. So there is this desire, right, to get to this specific tier that causes us to, it just takes so much longer because you're worried about things that aren't a problem yet, right? Like, oh, how do I deal with this scaling, that scaling? And certainly in my business now, a lot of what I deal with is organizing a team and systems and organization. That didn't matter 5 years ago. And if I'd worried about them at the wrong time, yeah, it would have really slowed my growth. So this is very interesting to me. I think this is a really important topic because people get caught up. Like I always see people like, oh, what are the habits of billionaires? I'm like, maybe you shouldn't start with that. Like maybe you should start with the habits of people that are where you want to get to for your next goal, right? Like there's.
Oh, yeah. I like that a lot. When I was wanting to make it as a speaker years and years ago, I'd go to the National Speakers Association and these people would get up on stage and they'd speak about how to be a great speaker. But I'm not convinced that those were the people that I should have been listening to because they couldn't remember what it was like 20 years ago when they were getting started. They know how to get the big speeches. That's the world they live in. What I realized what I probably needed was someone who had recently done it or was in it and doing really well. And then like, okay, what's working for you? Show me how to do that. So yeah, some of this stuff is remedial. And when my clients, I'll get them started on some productivity and I'll give them 2 or 3 things to practice. And then the next week they'll come back and say, I had mixed success. I had a little bit of success, but here's where it fell off the rails. And I'm like, okay, great. Let's really dive into it. Where did you get, you got phone calls that interrupted you? Why was your phone why wasn't it on do not disturb? Oh, well, what if I got an urgent call from someone? Okay, so we got to deal with that so that they can remove the distraction. So usually people will fall off the horse and you are right. You got to pick what you want to get good at. I signed up for a 9-month awakening program. If I now sign up to another training program that I'm interested in, am I really going to show up for both of those? Maybe not. Maybe I should show up 100% for the one I'm already in. Chew and swallow before you take another bite might be how we could summarize this.
Yeah, it's really hard to learn multiple things at once because then you're trying to load balance. So I spend 2 hours on this, 4 hours on that. And I do what you talk about with the phone thing. When I teach a lot of people who are writers and I say, when you're writing, unplug the router. And that's so scary because we think we need to be connected. I do love that you mentioned that, well, what if it's an emergency? Well, how many emergencies have you had? In my entire career, I think I've had 2 times, 2 emergencies that came in and they were both emails, not phone calls, right? In 12 years. So unless you're a doctor or in the police, like if you're in something like that, right, where you're a first responder type person, okay, it makes sense to have it on. But when's the last time you had a blog emergency, right? Like when's the last time you had something that couldn't be handled? One thing I've learned from doing client work, whenever I work with a client, it's always an emergency until it's on their desk. This is a lesson my dad told me. He was a lawyer. He's like, oh, the contract's an emergency until I give it to the client and they have to review it. And I can tell you, whenever I write a book for someone and it's in the rough draft and they're looking at the rough draft, it's not an emergency. It's like weeks or months or even a year they spend before they look at it because our definitions of emergencies are so off that we sometimes get influenced by other people in that, oh, if they say it's an emergency, but it's not really an emergency, that we think we need to be so available. For a long time, I was talking about this in last week's episode, we're talking a lot about getting good sleep. I used to have my phone, every single work email, every single contact, and it would buzz hundreds of times a day. And because I was like, oh, I'm so important. But it was all spam email, get a buzz, right? Reply to an email that doesn't matter, get a buzz. A bill's coming in, get a buzz. And I used to get phantom buzzes from my leg all the time. I'd be driving. I'm like, did my phone just ring? And I'm pulling it out, right? While I'm driving, horrible. And there's nothing. It was only when I realized today, actually, I don't know where one of my phones is. I was thinking of it. I was like, oh man, because I have a phone for work, a phone for personal stuff, and a phone that I use just for shooting TikTok videos and posting videos for work. I don't know where that phone is. I'm going to have to ask my wife where it is because it's like, I often don't know where my phone is. I usually don't know where all 3 are, to be honest with you. Like they're for 3 different things. And they're always on silent. The thought of hearing the phone ring, because it's never important. The most common call I get is from the delivery man. He's like, oh, I'm here with something, right? We ordered something to our house and it's not an emergency, but we think it is. And it becomes this steady distraction. And we're afraid. We think that if we turn off the internet, that's the one time there'll be a super big emergency. But I think that's a really good place to start for people, is like, instead of thinking about adding more efficiency, it's removing the distractions.
That'd be the simple way. But there's one other thing that's going to buzz you. So let's suppose you put your phone on Do Not Disturb. I love the idea of unplugging the router. Set up your email so that it doesn't ping you when there's a notification. That should be by default. So you don't know when someone's trying to reach you. You have to go to your phone and look at it to check messages. That's the first change. But once you've done that, I'll tell you the next stage that people get struck by is your mind is going to buzz you. Your mind is going to buzz you. Oh, you sit down to do 25 minutes, and most people don't do that. But if you you sit down, you're going to do a Pomodoro, which is a 25-minute period of focus on one task. Watch what happens. It's insane. You will find yourself on Facebook. You'll find yourself, you open email to send an email to someone. I get caught all the time, and now I see it, and now I'm in it, and now I'm responding to that when I had just told myself, this is my goal for 25 minutes. So two ways to counteract that is, one, set a 25-minute goal and just watch what happens, and just catch your mind when you're going off and just see how much you want to go and address this and that and whatever. You might find yourself going to get a snack. You're like, wait, what just happened? I said I was going to focus. And the second thing you can do is keep a later list. Just put later at the top of a piece of paper. And when an idea comes to you, I'm going to do it now. Text manager. There you go. Boom. Write it down just as if you were meditating and a thought came into your mind. You might allow it, notice it. Byron Katie says, give it a picture, thank it for sharing its life with you, and watch it drift off and come back to the breath. Write it down on your later list. Come back to what you were doing and just see how good it feels to nail 25 minutes at something.
Yeah, that's very interesting that we have these habits. Like, it took me a while to transition to checking email once a day. Sometimes I check it once at the beginning, once at the end of the day, because I read this study that said people who work in corporate or work for companies check their email 6 hours of the day. They spend just doing email stuff. It's like, and then they spend 2 hours working. It's so inefficient. One of the big things that happens for people that I've seen is when you're working on your side business 2 hours a day, right? You're so efficient because you have only a small amount of time, but then you quit your full-time job and suddenly you have these huge swaths of time. So you don't get 4 times more done. You get the same amount done in less time because you go, well, I have all day to work on it, right? I have 8 hours instead of 2. So why work on it now? I can work on it later. And our efficiency plummets. I've seen this happen to a lot of people that it's sometimes being able to leave that main job is the worst thing that can happen to you. So many travel bloggers, is what happened to them. All these travel bloggers were so hot 5 or 6 years ago. As soon as they made enough money to start traveling, they all went out of business in a few months because they stopped doing any work, right? They spent all their time traveling and not blogging about it anymore. And that becomes this curse. So when people are facing that, suddenly I have like so much time that I don't feel the pressure to be efficient. What's the best way to approach that? When you're talking to people when they suddenly have these huge swaths of time, because that could be so dangerous. It's like, if it's due tomorrow, I'll work on it really hard. But if it's due in a month, I'll wait 29 days to start working on it, right? Like, that's everyone.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Sometimes I get up and it's like, wow, there's nothing I have to do today. So I've got a client they're probably at 20 million a month revenue. That's what they're doing. And they've got a slim operation and they're pretty efficient. And they just want to know how to do better. So each time we look at how to optimize. And one of his questions is, I have time. I've got maybe 10 projects I'm managing, but sometimes there's nothing I need to do on that one project. And I asked him this great question. What do you want to create? Like, when that happens, ask yourself, what do I want to create? And we started looking into it. He realized he doesn't want to bring on another big project because the other projects are going to ramp up and then it's going to be too much. So he's just got a little bit of downtime. And what he wants to create is he wants to get into real estate and really learn about real estate investment. That's his project. So now when he's got some downtime, he can go to that. Also, we came up with, maybe he'll do an acknowledgement cycle, which is just go through the people in the company and think of something he appreciates about them. Ping off a little message to everybody. What a great way to use your downtime. And there's something that I've done. Actually, I'm reminding myself now to get back to it. There's something called the morning pages. Have you heard of that, Jonathan? Morning pages. Yeah, the morning pages are from a book by Julia Cameron called The Artist's way. And it's for people who want to be creative. And one of the exercises, I don't know if there are many of my friends who haven't done this, is you do in the morning, as soon as you wake up, maybe you grab a glass of water, maybe you go to the bathroom, but then you grab your notepad and you write. It's journaling, but journaling where you're not allowed to stop the pen. So you just write stream of consciousness, anything that comes to your mind. Oh, I don't know what to do today. There are no deadlines. What am I going to do? Blah. And I write blah, blah, blah when I can't think blah, blah, blah. Oh, look, there's a bird out the window. My left foot feels a little warm. Well, what do you want to do? David, what do you want to create? You just asked that guy yesterday. Wait, stream of consciousness, 3 full pages, usually takes about 20 minutes. And I find that at the end of that, I know what I want to do. It comes out. I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I want to handle that issue. I'm going to reach out to so-and-so because that's been sitting there for a month. Boom, 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 boom. I got 7 things and I order them in order of priority. Now I've got a very clear day. So great technique if you find in any given day you're feeling a little lost or you just want to be more creative in your life. The theory, I believe, is she's into you dump out all the crap that's in your head. Just get it out on paper so your mind becomes more free. And I've never done it for 8 weeks, which is what she suggests. Do it for 8 weeks. And she also says you're not allowed to read it. Don't read it. I cheat because I do it and then I'll circle things that I want to do. And then I've got my task list. But very powerful process.
Yeah, because a lot of times this used to be me too. It's like I'll sit down and work 3 hours. And I'll be like, what did I do? You can't even remember what you did for the last 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 hours, right? You work an entire day. And if someone says, what did you do today? And you can't really tell because there are so many distractions. And for me, at least, I go through different phases. Like I used to be someone who would spend huge amounts of time on social media or whatever, like before this was my job, right? Now I hate the internet. To me, this is my job, right? The internet is my job. So if I'm not working, I don't want to be online. Like the thought of reading people's social media posts or twittering at people about not work stuff, that doesn't resonate with me at all. In the same way that I write nonfiction books, it's a huge part of my business. I never read nonfiction books. I only read fiction. Like I've absolutely read the book you were talking about earlier. I know exactly which book it is. Like I'm like on book 8 in that series. I'm waiting for the new one to come out in a month. Like that's me. Is like I separate work, what I do at work and what I do at home. It's like I'm sure you're the same. Like the last thing you do when you're not working anymore is want to talk about efficiency, right? It's like in your time off, you don't want to do work stuff. But there's so many things. And the way every internet program is designed, right, is to be interesting, right? They're specifically designed to reward you for checking or logging in or open the app every single day or this and that. They have all these little rewards built in because they know what they're doing. It's why those free to play games are so profitable, right? They're doing millions of dollars a day because they know how to create that dopamine effect of, oh, I'm getting a little reward and this reward, and I'll buy this currency to get that currency, to play this game to get that reward, all of that stuff. And it can become, it's so powerful. Like they know what to pull you in. That's why I do say like the only way to stop it is to block it, right? Is to turn off the internet for a few hours. And there are these like focus apps that only let you open certain programs or whatever to control you, especially for writers. This is why for me, I always separate the research from the writing phase, because I have to be online to look up stuff. If I'm looking up a study, like I was ghostwriting a book for a client last week and he made a claim about a percentage, right? And I have to look that up. That's during the research phase. But when I'm just doing the writing, I don't want that to happen. I separate those phases so I can have a phase where I don't have to be online, because that's absolutely, for me, that's when I'm the most efficient. Because it's very hard if your phone's ringing not to answer it. If you get a buzz or an alert. I forgot, you mentioned it earlier. I forgot that your email could make a noise. Remember we used to love that you got mail. It was like exciting. And now it's like the worst noise you can hear. Yeah. And I've turned off those alerts so many years ago because I realized I was checking the email once every hour. And it's like, you can check your email every 3 days and you're probably fine, to be honest with you. Like it's so rarely something that's that important. It has to be same day. But golly, we have so many alerts and noises and all of these things that they're really distractions.
I wish there was a survey. I'd like to know how many people check their phone when they go to the bathroom. It's such a part of us. It's such a habit. One tip is you can take all those apps that have an icon notification. So when it'll show you like, oh, you've got 2 messages or you got 3 messages on that, right? That wants to pull you in. I'm like, here's my phone right now. I can see I got one on Messenger, and I've got 5 messages on WhatsApp. Duolingo's got one, because Duolingo, man, are they good at gamifying. They had me last night checking my phone at 7 o'clock because there was an award that was going to unlock between 6 p.m. and midnight. That was the only time I could get it. Then I could get my double XP points. And now they got me competing with 30 other people in a group, and I don't like to lose. So they're absolutely brilliant in getting engagement. What you can do is move those apps with those banner notifications to your second screen of the phone so that it's not even there. You have to go and move one screen over to see who's trying to get to you. And another idea that came up to me as you were talking about the apps know how to get your attention, you also can use that to get your own attention. So if Duolingo knows how to gamify and give you a buzz and give you that dopamine hit, you too can do that for yourself. You can hack your own system, do a 25-minute sprint on something that matters to you. Maybe start the day with 25 minutes on something you've been putting off. Have it be the first thing you do. You got your cup of tea, coffee, you've gone to the pee, maybe you've had a little dance, whatever your morning routine is. You sit down, you don't check email, do 25 minutes. 25 minutes goes off, go and do some push-ups, whatever, reward yourself in some way, and notice how good it feels that you did 25 minutes on something that matters. And then here's the other thing. The universe can start to reward you. That 25 minutes might have involved some outreach. And then someone gets back to you and they're interested in maybe working with you. So now you do a session and then you get a client out of it. It's real life gamification. So hack your own system, hashtag.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of opportunities as soon as you go from passive to active. I think a lot of us, certainly for me for a long time, right? I just approached focus and efficiency kind of passively. Like I wasn't paying attention to them until you start getting all these alerts. Like I'm always turning off which apps are allowed to notify me of things. Like a game app, I always have to, I'm like, how dare you, right? But also my phone is never on. It's never notifications are on. Like I won't know if I have messages unless I pick up the phone and push the thing because it doesn't have anything showing. It doesn't flash a light, none of that stuff. And it hasn't affected my life negatively. It's never like one time my wife called me when there's an emergency. It was the exact second I picked up the phone. I was like, oh, the universe takes care of you. If it's an emergency, you find out, right? So yeah, all of these, it's amazing how, yeah, you're right. I think everyone takes their phone to the bathroom. Everyone is so used to that, or you check your phone right before you get to bed. So your sleep's not as good. We were talking about that last week, right? You have that blue light in your eyes so you don't like wind down. And
yeah. And what if there's something that actually does need your attention right before bed? Or what if it's something that's stressful? I'm in contract negotiations right now for a movie in Atlanta, and it's not always peaceful. And I'm so glad I did not get that message from my manager until this morning. If I'd gotten it last night, it would have loaded up in my system and it's something I would have had to deal with and it might have gone into my dreams. Let's not do that to ourselves. So it seems like I think if I'm hearing you right, that what you had was an addiction to being available because there was some belief that it was super important. And if you weren't available, something bad would happen. And you've now dealt with that and found that it's actually not that true. We often discover it when we get sick. We think we're so irreplaceable, and then we get sick and can't do anything for a week. And guess what? Stuff got done. Stuff got handled. Nothing crashed that can't be repaired. So yeah, I like hearing about that evolution for you. I'm hoping listeners can take something from that and go, yeah, I don't have to be available.
I think that all of those notifications make us feel important. That, oh, I'm getting a message and this message is, I'm getting so many emails a day. The more emails a day I get, the more important I am. I think that's a thought. That's a phase I went through, right? Like everyone's reaching out to me. Everyone's notifying me. And now like, because sometimes parts of my business run so smoothly, I feel like I'm not needed. And it's like, well, do I matter? You start to feel like, oh, I built such a good machine. It doesn't need me anymore to operate it all the time. And you start to feel like a dip in your self-confidence. And because honestly, most of my projects right now, like I could go to sleep for a month. My revenue wouldn't change. Like I could rip and winkle it, right? Because I've been doing this for 12 years. Most of the stuff is pretty automated. Other than sending out my daily emails, nothing else I do for the rest of the day matters. This podcast doesn't matter. Like this podcast is not going to affect whether or not I pay for my kids to go to college, right? It's not a critical part of the business, but I do it because I love it and I meet amazing people. It helps me to help my audience a lot. But we so often think the things we think are important aren't, right? We think That's why I love the 80-20 rule, right? You analyze what was the thing I did that mattered the most, right? It's usually one thing I do every day is the most significant. The rest of the day is just meetings or setting up things that will make a difference in 6 months or in a year as the company grows and projects grow. But we have this desire, and I think it's linked to affirmation. I remember some people say, if you get all of your affirmation at work, then those little notifications become a form of affirmation. I'm needed. Someone needs me. I'm needed as someone needs me, right? And if that's your source of affirmation, it can become very powerful. And there's a thing I wonder about that a lot of people now mix business and pleasure. Your laptop is where you work and it's where you watch Netflix. Your phone is where you work. There's been a merging of the business and the personal. So it's like your work laptop is also nobody has two laptops, right? Nobody has a work and a personal laptop. We used to, right? We worked somewhere else. But what do you think about that? Like as we merge, right? As we use the same tools for business and pleasure, because for me, I have to get into a work state. If that makes sense to you, like I have to be in work mode. And so in this room, this is my office. I would never in a million years would I put a video game on this computer. And I play video games, right? I have a PlayStation. I have a Nintendo. I would never play a game on the computer, right? To me, that's so like There Be Dragons. That's the beginning of something that would break that barrier for me. But sometimes it's not when I had a smaller location and my computer was in my bedroom, then it was harder to separate those two states of mind. And you do have to spend some time not working. I used to get sick a lot more because I would work too hard and I would either blow up my throat or get a different injury from just over computing because it's right there. It's like, I can just roll out of bed, work an extra couple hours. How do you think that affects your focus as these merging of these two worlds? It used to be so distinct and separate.
Well, I don't have any experience either myself or with my clients of separating the locations, except that I have suggested to clients who are having trouble sleeping that they only use the bed for sleep and sex, and that's it. And don't watch TV in bed. So you just associate bed with that. But what I do advocate is choosing by time when you are working and when not. And that doesn't, I don't even think you have to have like 9 to 3 each day is your work hours, but it might support you to do that. What's most important is that you choose when you are going to focus and when you don't. And because it's silly to suggest that someone would be focused 24/7, unless you're some monk working on some ninja, if you're a ninja, maybe, but choose when. So it's okay, consciously from 8 till 10, I'm going to do a sprint. That gives me 4 sprints of 25 minutes with 4 5-minute breaks. And that's when I will be focused. And for that, if sitting at your desk is the place where you're going to feel focused in your office, great. If you want to do it in your bed, I don't mind, as long as you're sleeping well and you're able to focus for that period of time. That makes a difference. And then maybe you get to the afternoon, it's 2 o'clock and you're like, all right, I'm not going to be so strict now. Now I'm going to check voicemail. I'm going to check my messages. I mean, power to you. If you can wait until 2 o'clock in the, say you start at 8 and you go 6 hours, take an hour for lunch, maybe over lunch, you check your messages. So time wise, this is when I'm working.
I think that's good to create some type of barrier. Either it's a physical barrier like I'm really into, or a time barrier where you go, I'm working now, and you kind of switch. I've always been a big believer, especially when I'm writing, is I have a pre-work ritual to get my mind into, I'm about to start writing. This is my process before I write, so that when I sit down on the computer, because you want to get like that rhythm, like you have to. And I've always been fascinated by Pomodoro. I've never been that type of writer because I'm a marathon writer. So it's like 25 minutes is too short for me. So if I'm in the zone, like I'll write for 2 or 4. It used to be 8, not anymore. But now if I'm writing, it's going to be like a much longer curve. And so I write in a way where all my sections are blocked out. So I don't accidentally write really long straight. So I actually have a break in there. But I think that's the important thing, is that you have to find the right system for yourself to where you have a barrier of when work is starting and when work is ending and when your focus sessions are. And I think Pomodoro, a lot of the people I work with who write, it's really helped them to have a specific system. I know there's a lot more people who are doing like online co-working sessions. Have you seen this where
I've done
you
it.
tell another person?
I love it.
Yeah. I thought it was so weird when I first heard about it. It's like, we'll just sit online. We'll both be working, but we won't be talking to each other, right? Like you work for 50 minutes, you talk for 10 at the end, or you say, here's what I'm going to do. It's amazing how the social pressure causes you to work. Like the person can't see you, right? They don't know if you're working or not working.
Yeah. You can call it social pressure, You can also call it social support, just having someone around. In this awakening course, we're doing tapping, emotional freedom technique. And I hadn't been really doing it. So I set a date with someone who's in the course, and we got there. And I've never tried this before, tapping with someone else. We put our videos on mute, but she was right in front of her computer. I was right in front of my computer. So she could see my face. She could see the tears running down my face if she wanted to, but she probably wasn't looking because the tears are running down her face. And we did this together and we did a check-in halfway through, which wasn't a good idea because we're in the zone. So we just said, let's just keep going. But that support, I didn't want to do an hour on my own. I didn't really want to do an hour with someone else, but I'm willing. And then once I'm into it, oh my God, it's amazing. So a human presence. If you're having trouble working, I would say try the Pomodoro technique first, do sprints of 25 minutes. And if that's not kicking it for you, there's an app that I've downloaded. I have not used it yet because what I've done is I've gotten friends together. I just reached out to some people and say, hey, do you want to be on a thread on Facebook Messenger? And I'll let you know when I'm doing a sprint and anybody can join me. And that was great. Someone be like, oh, I can join tomorrow for half of that. And they'd come in and you check in at the top of the hour. This is what I will do. This is what you'll do. It either goes on mute or you can close off Zoom and then you check back in at the top of the hour, or you could do 2 hours. And I do find that accountability makes a huge difference. And if you don't want to organize it with your friends, this app, I wish I'd thought of it and created it. It's called FocusMate. And you find someone. I imagine your first session is free or something like that. And after that, you pay something to the app to connect you. Brilliant. And then see what happens to you. At the minimum, here's what I want for you. If you try FocusMate, listeners, or any kind of co-working, at the minimum, you discover how much your mind wants to go off in another direction. When I first did this, I was crap at it. And that was the win. To just look. You know what, Jonathan, you asked me how I became passionate about it. Now I'm remembering. It was doing this thing called a Do It Day with Steve Robbins, who's a great guy. And he invited me to join it. And I did it from 9 till 5 and discovered how bad I was at staying on track. And I'm like, all right, let's learn how to stay on track. And then when I learn something, I like to share it with other people. And that was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I got right into productivity because I discovered how much I was bad at it.
I think that's really interesting because a lot of people just would act like they've always been a productivity expert, right? I was born for productivity, but it's much more interesting to hear about like a journey and to see that it's real because we can always get better at the things we're doing. And that's really interesting to me. One of the ladies I'm coaching right now is finishing her first book finally. She swears by FocusMate and she measures how much work she's done by the number of FocusMate sessions. She's like, I did 4 FocusMate sessions there, 2 FocusMate sessions today. So it's a really powerful way, right, that people do measure, like when you finally have a way of measuring how much you've got done. And
yeah,
it is, I think it's okay to see it as a journey. Like as long as you do a little better today than you did yesterday, that's like such a step forward and it's a really great place to be. So I think that's awesome. So I do like it.
And I want to make 2 points here that just came to me. The first one is you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to get more focused. It's totally valid if you want to get up and just do what you want to do in a day and see what calls to you. Thomas Leonard is considered the father of modern coaching, and he popularized coaching in its form today. And he said his system is to just get up and navigate by curiosity. So you can do that. The techniques that we're talking about today are only if you want to produce more in less time. You're not happy with the current pace of the game you're playing and the game of life and business. If you want to progress faster, you want more results, you want more money or more peace or to impact more people or whatever, then use this stuff. But you might also say, you know what, Friday, I'm not going to do any of this. I'm just going to navigate by curiosity. Saturday and Sunday, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want. So I don't want you to hear this like you have to do this to be a better person. No, which brings me to my second point. I'm not that passionate about productivity in itself. I'm passionate about people's lives being something that they're proud of and something that on their deathbed, I want everyone to be able to look back and say, I gave it all. I gave it my everything. That's what lights me up. And if that means that you discover more about yourself, if that means you start speaking more of your truth, if that means that you build your relationships so there's more love in your life, then great. If while you're doing that, you want to also work on your business and have it be better, great. I'm a nerd for systems, so let's do it. But it's really the personal side that gets me jazzed. And I do the productivity stuff when my clients are like, hey, help me out with this. I'm feeling really scattered. And so that's got me stressed. And I know I could be doing so much more and have more time off. I had one guy just did a speech for his local club group of entrepreneurs. And it was called How Hiring a Business Coach Helped Me Double My Income and Cut My Workload by 80%. And I was like, is that what happened when we worked together? He said, yeah. He said, I doubled my income and my workload was cut by 80%. I'm like, I'm really glad to know. Like, I know this stuff works. I didn't know it worked that well, but that's what's possible if you want to walk that path. So it's not me saying everyone's got to focus. It's more me responding to people saying, how can I do this? I was like, well, if you want to do it, these steps have worked for me and they are working for my clients.
This is great. Where can people find out more about you and see what you're doing online and follow you and learn more about your focus journey?
Thank you. Well, I love that question. If you're listening to this and you want to engage with me in some way, firstly, I'll give you my email address. A lot of stuff on my website is free, the articles, the downloads. If I can help you in any way, please don't add me to a mailing list. Please treat my email list with respect and let me opt into any list I want to be on. But if you've got a question, if something wasn't clear here, or if I can help you in some other way, david@focus.ceo. There may be a spam challenge on that, so you have to prove that you're human, but david@focus.ceo. And if you want to go further, I've created a link for listeners. So you can't find this if you just go to my general website. But if you go to this link, I'm going to offer 3 things. The first one is a session with me. Now, to qualify for this, you need to be already up and running with income and doing well. So, sometimes I work with people as low as 5,000 a month, as high as 8 million a month. So the revenue doesn't really matter as long as you are up and running and you're serious about getting some support in doing better in all of your life, not just your business. I will do a 15-minute session with you and just offer anything I can, help create the beginnings of a plan. And that may be all you need. If you want longer-term coaching, we can talk about that. So there's the free session, and I have a download it's a video called How to Achieve Twice as Much in Half the Time. So if you want to go deeper into what we talked about today, that video is free. And then for $12.95 on that website, there's a link to my book, Mouse in the Room. And that's for people who want to go to a deeper level of truth in their life and learn how to do it in everyday conversation, be more of who you are. And then that'll have everyone around you unconsciously get permission to speak more of their truth with you. That's called Mouse in the Room. And the link is focus.ceo, which is my website. It's not a .com. I got the .ceo, which I thought was pretty cool. Focus.ceo/gift. That's as simple as that. And if you want to subscribe to the videos that I send, you can do that at the website. There are lots of options, but focus.ceo/gift will give you a couple of goodies that I hope really support you.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for all of your time. We really appreciate it. I know people are going to love this episode. So thank you very much. I know a lot of people are going to come visit you. So thanks for visiting me.
My pleasure. Good to meet you, Jonathan.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. I love podcasting, and it's never too late to start your amazing podcast. Get started with my free guide at servemaster.com/checklist.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Serve No Master podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. We'll be back next week with more tips and tactics on how to escape the rat race. Please take a moment to leave a review at servenomaster.com/iTunes. It helps the show grow, and more listeners means more content for you. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.